Imagine being stranded on the largest ocean on the planet, and to make things worse, being in a boat as bare bones as this one that has no structure, no motor, and to make things even more worse, you have to survive here for 438 days. Well, fisherman Jose Alvarenga did it, and people know him as the real-life castaway, only his story is arguably worse. This is the story of being lost at sea for 14 months. On November 17, 2012, Salvadorian fisherman Jose Salvador Alvarenga, alongside Ezequiel Cordoba, set out on what was planned to be a short fishing trip on the coast of Costa Azul, Mexico. A few hours into their trip, a massive storm struck their way. It was so bad that it lasted 5 days, blowing them completely off course. Both men tried their best to fight the waves, but the waves were way too unpredictable. They were getting waves that would peak up to 3 stories high, and falling felt like a drop in an elevator. Alvarenga realized that the fish that they caught was making the boat top heavy and unstable, and in desperation, he went with his gut feeling to just dump all the fish. One by one, the two men dropped the carcasses back into the sea. And as the storm rolled through, they had to bail out water out of the boat. And I'm talking some like David Goggins type effort, because they were literally doing this for hours. And they felt so exhausted, they felt like fainting, but they had no choice but to keep going. Not only did it blow them off course, but it destroyed all of their equipment. The boat's motor, their fishing equipment, navigation, radio. And without their lifeline, they were left completely on their own. He also strung 50 buoys together from the boat as a makeshift sea anchor to provide drag and stability. And at this point, the wind has pushed them so far into the dark of night, they lost their usual means of calculating distance. A search party was sent, but just after 2 days had passed with no signs of Alvarenga and Ezequiel, their boss just gave up and assumed that they drowned. During the day, they would huddle and hide under an icebox to protect themselves from the sun. But as they huddled for shelter, incoming water swooshed in. They had no choice but to take turns leaving the icebox to bail. Even though it was slow, the water at their feet slowly began to subside. However, on the bright side, Alvarenga came up with his own way of catching fish. He would kneel at the edge of the boat and would catch fish literally with his bare hands. It was difficult at first, but he had no choice, but eventually he mastered it. And sometimes they even got lucky and caught turtles, flying fish that would just land in their boat. But as days passed, they started to feel the effects of dehydration, and in desperation, they would drink their own urine. But after 2 weeks, they finally got a breakthrough when rain started to drop on them. And luckily, they already prepared a rainwater collection system a week prior, and they celebrated the fresh water by opening their mouths and letting the rain just fall in. And after just 2 months at sea, Alvarenga started to adapt and became accustomed to capturing and eating fish, while Cordoba became weaker mentally and physically. He wasn't able to hold food down and his health slowly declined. Although they were on the same boat, both of them were on completely different paths, and eventually Cordoba passed, leaving Alvarenga completely alone. They made a pact with each other, saying that if one of them passes, they would visit their parents to pass on their last words. Alvarenga woke up terrified, thinking how could he even do this alone? Who would he be able to talk to? And he wondered why it was Ezequiel and not himself. And he blamed himself for his passing, since he's the one who invited him out. But what gave him the will to keep going and not off himself was that his mother assured him that those who off themselves would not make it into heaven. He started to let his imagination go wild in order to stay sane. He would imagine an alternate reality that convinced him that he would eat the best meals and how he would go about his days, because it kept him from thinking about dying. He would try to identify specks in the horizon that might have been shipping containers, and he's seen them about 20 times, and he would jump and flail for hours, but no luck. As he continuously drifts at sea, over a year passes, and finally on January 30th, 2014, he started to notice that the sky was filled with shorebirds. A tropical island began to appear in the distance, but he second-guessed it, thinking it was a hallucination. But as he stared at the island, he started to pick out details. It looked wild without any human civilization. He thought about cutting the buoys off his boat, and he started to calculate the risks before him. Because if he didn't make it to the land and drifted away, he could flip during a tropical storm. And he decided to take the risk, as he would rather get there faster than having stability. And in an hour, he drifted near the beach. 10 yards from the shore, he dove into the water and paddled until a large wave washed him onto the beach, leaving him on the beach holding a handful of sand as if it were treasure. He finally makes it to land. From Mexico, he made it all the way to the Marshall Islands. He meets a local couple, and they immediately inform the authorities. The tissue in his feet and legs were swollen due to the tissues being deprived of water for so long. But after 11 days, doctors determined that his health had stabilized enough for him to return back to El Salvador. And at the time, he didn't even know the exact duration he had been or how far he had traveled. He drifted 7,000 miles over 438 days, all of which he didn't even know during his incredible journey. And not only until a year later did he start to fathom what he had just been through. He says, "I suffered hunger, thirst, and extreme loneliness, and I didn't take my life. You only get one chance to live, so appreciate it."